Good morning.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, guys. Good morning.
Do you want to start with a brief introduction of yourselves?
Yes, I go first.
You go first.
Okay.
You're sitting next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emilio. I work in Aave Labs. I have been in Aave since the beginning, 2017, and I am one of the lead developers of the protocol. We were leading the development of the Aave V1, V2. I led the V3, and now I designed V4. So we are currently building close to release, let's say, the version 4 of the protocol. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Martin. My role is current role is BD, but I've been a full stack dev in the past, and I even got into smart contract coding. And I'm not developing the new lending market, but I have a lot of experience because I'm like 10 years in this space, and I think a lot about our lending market was like an isolated lending market, Llama Lend. And I did set up market and set params and make simulations to find the best params and these kind of things. And yeah.
Great. So we're going to kick it off because you guys are both lending protocols talking about your collateralization process. With Aave V4, what have you decided to do differently? And with Llama Lend, how did you decide to do what you do for your collateralization?
You want to start?
Yeah, so because our market is in theory it's permissionless. It's just that it's not like, there's so many params, and so you need to know how it works. So we never did see anyone setting up their own market, so we help them. So if somebody is like approaching us, what we do is we make some simulations with existing data and look at the volatility of the asset basically, and then we find out what the best param is for this asset. And because it's isolated, we just look at the one asset we have. And one thing is like crucial is to see how much liquidity is in the market, because in isolated market you can also like list quite exotic assets. And we also had some issues sometimes with assets who then the liquidity has been too thin, and then it backfired somehow. So it's a delicate process, but mostly it's inbound. Somebody asks us, we advise them, and we help them to open the market, basically.
Yeah, in our case, I mean, the process kind of starts from the way the protocol works, right? So this process is also in place in Aave. So there are risk managers that do exactly the same. So they evaluate what kind of collaterals are high quality enough to be listed on Aave. And but not only that, there are other risks related to choosing what kind of collaterals you might want to allow people to collateralize. Centralization risk is one. If there are entities, for example, with a large amount of token, so if there are token unlocks and which might affect liquidity over time in the market. So you might be at a stage where the circulating supply of a token is relatively small. Therefore, the market is healthy. But then if there are huge unlocks over time, this might progressively deplete the market. Or it might open up in situations where large token holders might create non-liquidatable positions. So these are also aspects that are kept in consideration. But then also, like a model of Aave is pooled model with aggregated liquidity, which is very capital efficient, but is also very important to keep healthy, because like a bad collateral could potentially spread bad debt to the rest of the assets. So there are a variety of levers that the DAO can move to prevent this from happening.
Speaking of DAO, you both have different governance models. Curve is famous for VE Curve. Aave's governance for risk parameters. Do you want to speak more about that and how those governance models dictates, I guess, the risk factors, your risk management?
So on the lending market, the DAO is not involved, basically. So we don't go over the DAO or any DAO vote. it's to change things afterwards. Yeah, we need DAOs, but to initiate the market, the DAO is not needed basically.
The parameters are not immutable, right? In
Some are immutable, some are not, and we are currently thinking, or we're doing a new iteration, a version 2 basically. So we are now in the process evaluate what we experienced in the last since it's out and how we're going to iterate on this. And so we go to have more params to change because we see, yeah, we need to govern more. We need to more change things if volatility of a pair changes or the market changes or instance happened, and then we can more interact with the market, and then the DAO is needed basically.
Yeah, in our case, we do have like two risk managers, risk providers, which they continuously monitor the system and check and validate the health of the various collaterals, and then eventually adjust parameters accordingly. In V4, we will have like this process can be tedious sometimes on the Aave DAO, especially when you have like tens of markets across multiple networks. So if you have a collateral or an asset that is listed on 12 networks and you want to adjust the risk parameters, you might have to adjust like risk parameters on 12 different networks in 12 markets. So in Aave V4, we will have some improvements on that side. So some of the parameters can be changed on the fly, only for new users, which is an occurrence that happens very often. Sometimes, like risk managers, they might want to check and change a risk configuration, not necessarily for existing users, but just for new users, and say, I don't know, until yesterday, USDC was okay with a collateral factor of 80%, but today is not good because the market conditions have changed. So today we want 60, right? So in that scenario, with Aave V3, it's not that easy to do because like changing the collateral factor of an asset affects everyone. In Aave V4, risk managers will be able to change a risk configuration only for new users, which hopefully should make things more streamlined. You can offload risk management to the risk providers without changing the trust assumptions of the protocol.
Moving forward on that, excuse me, can we discuss your different mechanisms for liquidations? I think Curve has an interesting methodology, and Aave is moving toward that in V4. So could we just describe what were the thoughts and processes behind the new kind of soft liquidation mechanism?
Yeah, so I think I did like think about this panel and preparation. I think what's important for the users basically to have time to react. It's not about how, that's the goal basically, give people time to react. And our solution basically is that you have like a collage, a zone where you basically tap in and then you're getting partially liquidated. But if the price recovers, it deliquidates you. And it's like a zone you are in. And if you enter this zone, it gets quite expensive quite fast because every time, if there's a lot of volatility, you pay a lot. But you still can basically save your position if you just top it, you pay back part of the debt and you have increased. In theory, you can go under that, you can be fully soft liquidated and still have the position. And it could also be seen as some kind of stop loss, basically. Or it's a stop loss where you still have the position. And if he recovers, basically you get back to the same place you are, but you lose some of your health, basically. So that's the feature. But at core, this is basically give people time to react. That's the main purpose. And I think Maker had like this 1 hour time till the Oracle updates. And this is in a way similar because the goal is to have a solution for this.
Yeah, in Aave, the liquidation engine is pretty much unchanged between V1, V2, and V3. It proved to be very resilient. So the way it works is that in Aave there is this value that is called health factor, and it tells you how healthy is your position. If your position is a health factor of your position is above 1, you're fine. If it goes below 1, you will cry, essentially. And so the moment that the health factor drops below 1, like liquidators can perform liquidation. They can take up to 50% of the collateral of the user and perform liquidation. This has worked very well, like it's gone through every possible market scenario that we have had from 2019 until now. And it worked very efficiently, but we think there is margin for improvement. So in V4, we did apply some improvements to this. So first improvement is that liquidators will not be able to liquidate up to 50% of the position, but only be able to restore the health factor to a threshold decided by the governance. So if the governance says, okay, you know what, let's not let liquidators to liquidate up to 50%, but only until health factor is 1, right? Or the governance can say they can set 105, depending. This is like will be a governance decision that will be modeled by risk managers. A second improvement is that the liquidation bonus is going to be like with a reverse Dutch auction. So instead of starting, it will start at the minimum when the health factor is 1, and then will progressively increase as the health factor drops. So if the position doesn't get liquidated immediately, the liquidation bonus increases to incentivize more liquidators to liquidate the position, and then like there will be also optimizations for liquidating multiple positions at the same time with the same pair asset being liquidated and collateral, plus a variety of minor other improvements.
That's really interesting because Flashbots is working with Chainlink on their SVR on the OEV capture. Just a plug for Flashbots. Moving on to, I think, the cross-chain aspect, which I think is really interesting. You know, we have a lot of fragmentation going on in EVM space. How does your chain sort of deal with that in terms of helping the users like access the different liquidity on various chains? Is this something that you consider? And what are your plans for the future on this?
Yeah, I think we are quite mainnet-centric, even if we have a lot of installation on other EVM chains, because it's still the case that most revenue is made on mainnet, basically. At the end, we have cross-chain governance much more, but it's not like, we have a cross-chain governance because if we do fresh installation, the installation is held by the DAO, basically. But you know, like unifying the liquidity cross-chain, we currently don't work on this.
Are you planning to?
I think, you know, if you have product market fit, you're cautious. So basically, you much more look what is proven to work, because otherwise you have to put a lot of resourcing something who is not like yet like a standard or anything like this. So yeah, you don't have to move that fast. So you can move slower than somebody just tries to penetrate the market right now, basically. So we look what's going to be established, and then, yeah, I guess we integrate at some point some things.
Yeah, in our case, like we have this model of having a presence on every network was traction, and it works really well so far. So one of the things that we were thinking over time would have picked up traction is like cross-chain lending and borrowing. So I have my collateral on one network, and then I want to borrow on another network. It really didn't, or at least like we didn't observe any major demand for this feature. So in our V3, we were planning to do something similar. We had like a feature was called portals, which theoretically would allow us to do so. We never did it because, first of all, like the demand was not there. And like one market per network model served the users pretty well already. And also there are some security concerns related to doing so, because like the moment that, for example, you allow, I don't know, a proof of stake, like a validators-based network to access Ethereum liquidity, for example, and that network has inherently lower security guarantees than Ethereum, then you are basically lowering the security of the Ethereum market, exposing it to the risk the network that is accessing liquidity. So there are some security concerns. Aave DAO, I think it got burned once with I don't remember the name of the network. One network was the bridge was hacked. Yeah, and which one was that?
FTM, what's like
No.
Phantom maybe?
No, it was not Phantom.
Yeah, because
Phantom,
we found on Phantom.
Harmony. Yeah,
Harmony.
it was Harmony. Yes, and I think that DAO lost a few millions because of that, just because like the bridge was hacked, and not all the assets that were in Aave were breached. So people managed to borrow using breached assets that were basically valueless. So that kind of left a mark in the DAO, and it was not pursued like this initiative of cross-chain lending and borrowing. Aave before will still allowed to do so eventually. We will see if it actually will ever come to life or not.
Interesting. A theme of, I think, this conference has been that the institutions are coming. How has a new customer base affected your decision making? Or are you planning on creating features for them? Or, are they part of your profile currently?
Yeah, if you go more on the AMM side, like basically, we have quite a simple product based on the stablecoin side. So it's not that we, at the core, I don't see anything we can basically improve for like institutions, because that's how it works, and it works well in this test basically. But what we can do is basically help them to see more what the pools are doing and these kind of things that build on top, and help them to understand better what's going on basically. And what we also think about, what we see that and now we're also planning to, now still we govern pool params, we change sometimes, because if it's more liquidity, then we make it more dense liquidity. And now everything has to go over DAO, but now we think about having dedicated people where we can basically assign, and then they can change params on pool, so we can have have pool curators basically, which I guess should help us to scale better basically. And it would be also faster, because now DAO won't need 7 days, and so I think it will open up a space to make things more efficient basically. That's
in our case, like what we noticed is that there is demand for at the institutional level for a variety of things that DeFi today doesn't really serve that well. One is so compared to today's Aave model, like institutions really like risk diversification. We were talking about this behind the scenes. So really like yield and risk diversification, being able to position themselves in a different place on the yield risk curve, right? So this Aave today, it allows it to do so, but not that efficiently. One of the reasons is that it's because of the model, because I think it's proven at this point that like a model with completely segregated liquidity and extreme heavy on risk diversification doesn't really scale. Like we have seen many protocols, including the latest ones like Morpho. They really struggle in scaling, while Aave is still printing all-time high, even though they have liquidity mining and they have like deals and everything, like they still struggle with scaling. And the problem, I think, is the model. So it's because like it just doesn't scale. And but at the same time, institutions like this particular the possibility of diversifying across different risk tiers. So Aave V4 will still maintain the same model as V3, but like it will create the possibility of diversifying risk by having pools of liquidity with different asset classes that can interleave each other. So we can provide liquidity that is in a pool, and we can allow another pool to access this liquidity up to a certain ceiling to bootstrap the market and let it grow by itself. that is something that today we cannot do because whenever in Aave you instantiate a new market, then you have to start from zero. So you have to find like a way of provision liquidity, either with incentives or other strategies. And tomorrow we will be able to do this very easily and without constraints, thanks to Aave v4 and this particular feature. And also it will be, because Aave v4 is going to be much more streamlined, completely new design, has nothing to do with v3. It's going to be much easier also to allow to do this permissionlessly compared to today where like Aave v3 is quite big, it's huge. So it's hard to deploy it, for example, permissionless, to create a permissional infrastructure to allow access to Aave technology.
So we're about under 4 minutes, and we're at the Stable Summit. So I want to ask a stablecoin question. We should get at least one in. How has your stablecoin and your protocol fit into, I think, your design mechanisms, and what do you plan to do with it going forward?
Yeah, so yeah, we have a stablecoin is in a way a specialized lending protocol basically. And we have CurveUSD, and it's also where basically it was the third iteration of the Llama Land, because Llama Land is just a similar product basically with a few changes. So CurveUSD is for us very important basically because I think it helps us. It's about moneyness at the end. You know, if you can own your own stablecoin and you have like basically as an exchange, you can partly nudge people to open pool with your own CurveUSD coin, so you get some kind of medium of exchange properties. You can not force, but you can bring into your user, and that's and now I lost track. Sorry. What's the?
Well, how does it fit into your future roadmap?
Now basically, yesterday Mitch did present YB, and YB is like the next step for CurveUSD basically, and it's kind of I don't go into details, but the idea is that you pay basically you pair Bitcoin or blue chip asset with CurveUSD and then leverage up, and then you can offset impermanent loss over this. So basically, also there, CurveUSD is an important part, and the main reason is CurveUSD is generating quite some revenue because all the minting right is going to the DAO vCurve holdership. So it's at the core of the strategy is CurveUSD, and because we anyway our biggest market is stablecoins, so that's
In our case, with Go, one of the things that we wanted to, one of the reasons why Go was launched is that we wanted to have a product that is behaves differently compared to other stablecoins in Aave, mainly in relation to predictability of the interest rates, because like interest rates on Aave are very volatile. So you can end up having paying 18% today, and after 2 minutes you pay 3, depending on where you are positioned on the interest rate curve. While with Go, we purposely decided to have like governance decided interest rates. So like people using Go and minting Go, they could have a certain degree of predictability of where the interest rates are and where they are going to be short term, because like they are changes through governance process. So that was the main reason why some people say, it's just obsolete because you don't know how to do variable interest rates. No, we don't care. It's not that reason. Like the reason is that we want to have a different product. Otherwise, like, why would people mint Go instead of just borrowing USDC, right? So, but like the idea with Go is much bigger and the plan is much more long term, because in reality the design of Go allows is very flexible, allows not only to be minted on Aave, but allows on a variety of strategies that can be built around it. And like recently we created a proposal on the Uniswap DAO to allow people to mint Go against Uniswap LP positions. And that's only one of the ideas that we have in mind for the future. So scaling a stablecoin is really hard, like really, really hard. and it's one of the main. It's a very long-term process.
That's it. I think we're about out of time. So I just wanted to thank the panelists.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.